Alrighty, so everybody is in. Welcome to our first meeting of the half. Firstly, I want to apologise about Skype for Business. It has been down quite a bit lately. We have had Jack looking into it, and apparently it is a massive outage across multiple businesses. They say within the next coming weeks, hopefully it will be fixed and back to normal, but at least we've got it working for now. I do want to thank everybody turning up to the meeting. It's really exciting to hear all of your voices. It feels like such a long time since we've all been in the office together, so I really do want to thank you, and we do thank you for your patience as well. I know everything has been a very big struggle for us all, but we're doing so well and we just need to keep up the work and we're almost through. So let's get started. So today we're going to go over some updates to our occupational health and safety policies and procedures, what the differences are and how it may affect us in our teams. So what we're going to cover in this PowerPoint is what is work health and safety and why it's important to our workplace, communication, consultation and participation with our staff members and why it's important to have that communication and consultation with them, and the importance of staff being involved in work health and safety policies and procedures, how we identify hazards, how to assess the hazards to define their risk, and how to control the risk. I would like to ask everybody to please hold questions until the end of the PowerPoint. To make it easy, you can write your questions in the messages of the Skype chat, and I will get back to them once we've got to the question and answer stage. The first thing that we are going to touch on is what is work health and safety. So the Work Health and Safety Act was created in 2011, and it was created to replace the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1991. Now, the Work Health and Safety Act aims to provide a national framework to protect the health, safety and welfare of all personnel at work and anybody who may be affected by that work. Now, the Work Health and Safety Act of 2011 is regulated by WorkSafe. Each state may have varying regulations and codes of practice to line up with the policies that they already have in place. So it's important to find out the regulations in your state. Mine is obviously Victoria, along with some of the rest of you, but depending on which Suncorp branch you're in, some regulations may vary. So you can either look up it on the intranet or even have a look at WorkSafe. They have a lot of information on there about it as well. Now, to ensure that our policies and procedures are up to date and all of our workers are compliant while using the policies and procedures, we refer to the regulations, which are the rules that state how the act should be applied and followed, and the code of practice. This provides a practical advice on how workplaces can meet the standards set put in the WHS Act and the WHS regulations. WorkSafe provides all of these on their website, so it makes it easier for us to go through and understand what the Act applies to and how we can be compliant to it as well. Now, example of a regulation that we're going through now would be remote or isolated work. So in the wake of COVID-19, we all had to vacate our offices in Gisborne, and others that may have visited Gisborne aren't allowed there anymore. This helps us protect the health of ourselves and those other people as well in our community. So in the code of practice provided by WorkSafe, it sets out that as an organisation, we must ensure all workers working from home have safety compliant equipment, including chairs, monitors, a stable desk, access to a first aid kit, a working telephone, emergency contacts, and access to working facilities, as well as frequent communication from us as well. Point is communication, consultation, and participation, and why it's important. So it is extremely important and a legal requirement that we include our staff in work health and safety activities by consulting them and seeking their participation where appropriate. During the consultation, we must provide all relevant work health and safety information, allow workers to contribute to the discussion, provide them with a chance to participate in the decision making, respond to workers' feedback and acknowledge their contribution, and then inform them of the outcome. Not only are we legally compliant with the Work Health and Safety Act of 2011, we are also able to gain a lot of knowledge from our frontline workers. They will be able to help us identify and minimise or eliminate risks in our workplace that we may not have noticed. It'll give the workers a sense of value in the organisation and ensure them that we are taking their health and safety and well-being very seriously. It's important that we communicate and consult our workers regularly. That way we can collect their feedback, improve our policies and procedures, and make sure that our staff know that their input is extremely valuable to us. Continuous communication and consultation will help us identify hazards that will affect our frontline workers, help us control the risk the hazards form, and ensure our staff are happy and safe. Since not all of us work on the front line, some hazards may go unnoticed if we don't have their input. We have a higher chance of our staff members being injured or their well-being put at risk, and our retention rates will drop as well. It could also lead to a lawsuit if the issues go unsolved. So that's why it's so important that we have open communication, consultation, and participation with our staff members. Now, our third point is the importance of staff being involved in work health and safety activities, identifying hazards, and how to assess the hazards to define their risk and how we can control the risk. Now, whilst we understand our requirements to the Work Health and Safety Act, we must be able to identify hazards in the workplace and the risk it may bring to our workers and guests and how we're going to control the risks. On the staff intranet, there will be a template all staff can fill out when they believe they have identified a hazard. There will be sections to describe the hazard, where it is located, how high risk the staff member thinks it is, and any ideas they may have to minimise or eliminate the hazard. This can then be given to their health and safety representative in their team or handed to their team leader. The hazard will then be investigated, action will be taken to quickly eliminate or minimise the risk before any workers or guests become injured or harmed. This will be completed by our health and safety team or our PCBU, which is person conducting the business or undertaking, or, in other words, our owner, our director, Sun. They may also be known as the officer or our human resource team will be involved as well. Depending on where you work, they will have different definitions for them, but we'll just go with Sun, the owner. Now, it's extremely important that all of our staff know that they can participate in the work health and safety activities, even if they just want to understand more, question. It's really important that we get our staff into these activities and participating in the workplace to ensure that they are safe and their colleagues are safe as well. So the way that we can do this is by introducing small allotments in our meetings where people can bring up ideas, feedback, hazards they may have noticed, and being a regular thing, it'll create a more familiar atmosphere to the workers, which may encourage them and make them feel a bit more open about discussing it with their team instead of feeling a bit intimidated as well. We can also suggest that they put in sort of documents anonymously. They don't have to put their names on it if they don't want to. It is there so that they can remain anonymous if that makes them feel comfortable as well. Or they can even come to you as an individual, ask to have a quick chat or a meeting, a one-on-one, if they don't feel comfortable doing it in front of their workers. But we must ensure that all staff know that we have an open door policy, that we're here to communicate with them, we're here to discuss things with them and make them feel comfortable as well. For us also, it kind of helps us click a little bit. So in the example, the staff member identifies a hazard that they believe may cause a risk. They understand how to assess the risk of the hazard and how to report it. They bring up the issue with the health and safety team, including ways on how to eliminate or minimise the hazard. And then it defines how the staff member was consulted about the decision as well. We have more than 15 pods in the office, as you know, and each of those pods holds around 18 to 20 staff members. Now, this also includes their desks, their desktops, their monitors, mouses, and keyboards. Because this is all electronic equipment, we also have a lot of power cords. So a staff member notices that there are a lot of loose, tangled power cords laying over a frequently used walkway, and it is very likely that someone could trip over the cords and seriously injure themselves. Had identified the hazard, the employee then filled out a hazard analysis form. In the form, they put the hazard down as the loose power cords. The risk is a high risk, as it is in a very frequently used place, and is more likely that someone would trip over the cords if not paying attention. The staff member then offered two solutions to minimising or eliminating the risk. The first one was to tape the cords into a group and tape it to the ground with hazard tape. That way it is a smaller tripping hazard and very clear to all workers and guests that it is there. Now, the second suggestion was to move the cords so that they are suspended from the ceiling. When done by a professional, the cords will be out of the way, out of sight, and neatly organised, and we still have access to all the ports from overhead, totally eliminating the risk. The hazard is then investigated, and once the hazard has been controlled, the health and safety representative will either advise the staff member of the resolution during a team meeting, on a one-on-one, through an email, or even in a thank you card, which also thanks them for their participation and helping eliminate the risk and keeping themselves safe and their workers safe as well. So we have our question and answer. So I did notice that there were a few questions put into the chat, so I'm going to start with them first, and then if anybody has any other questions after that, we can go through them. So Stephanie asked, who does the Act apply to? So everyone in our workplace has a duty of care. So a duty of care is a legal obligation to follow the standards of care when at work to avoid harm or injury to yourself and others. So everyone that is involved in the organisation, so anywhere from the director, management team, human resources, frontline staff, suppliers, stakeholders, even customers, all have a duty of care, so it applies to everyone. And Megan asked, how do we inform our team members of the work health and safety policies? So we have updated the policies on the staff intranet. We also updated it in their staff handbooks. We do recommend having a team meeting to explain what we just went through, and I can send you the PowerPoint as well, so you can go through that with them. And then you can just go through it, make sure your team understand how it relates to them and their responsibilities. So you can also go through a little questionnaire with them. We can make that up all as a group as well if you want to after this PowerPoint, and that way you can confirm their understanding as well. As a HR team, will also be sending out a department communication email to notify the staff members of all the changes as well. Now, what's the next question? So Lucky asked, where can we find out more information? So we have all the information on the intranet. I can also show you where we locate that, as well as our hazard analysis form. I'm going to attach the hazard analysis form in the email when I send the PowerPoint as well, just in case the staff can't find it. You can just quickly print one out to them. There'll also be links in there with the WorkSafe website as well. They're the regulators, so they have all the information on the Act as well. Now, how do we identify a need for training within our team for work health and safety? From Steph again. So we can complete a training analysis form. It can also be located on the intranet, and I can show you where to find it after this PowerPoint. Staff will be taken through the training in the induction period, but we'll also be offering refreshers to those who have identified that there's a little gap in their learning and more training would be effective to their jobs. So we'll go through that together at the end of the PowerPoint. And I think there's one more question. Yep, there it is. How do we encourage our staff to speak up? So basically what I went through before, make sure that it is a familiar thing for them. So we're constantly, continuously going through the details in our work meetings, leaving like maybe a 15-minute gap for anybody to bring up any feedback, questions, information, anything that they've noticed that's not quite working or what's working well. Also letting your staff know that we are an open door policy organisation, so they can come to us at any point. It doesn't have to just be yourself as team leaders. It can be me, it can be the HR team, it can be Sun, the general manager as well. If they want to go higher, they can go higher, because everybody will be willing to help them. Letting them know that they have that ability and it is extremely important that they participate and we value their voice will make it more familiar and helpful for them to step up and bring it out. Now, I think that's all of the questions in the group. If nobody has any other questions, I'm quite happy to end the PowerPoint and we can move on to showing those things on the internet. Awesome, sounds good. Thank you all for joining me with this meeting. We'll go through those other things now, and I'll send this PowerPoint to you all. Thanks so much for that.